Radio check, anybody copy? Parlerifsi. Hello, everyone. I'm Alice Kaniklen, and this is a special election year 2020 episode featuring Alaska House District 40 candidates on Coffee and Quack. Coffee and Quack is a podcast I created to celebrate and explore contemporary Native life in urban Alaska. This episode was originally broadcasted on KBRW 680 AM/FM programming on Thursday, October 29, 2020, and features HD40 candidates Elizabeth Ferguson and Josiah Peterson, sponsored by the Arctic Sounder and Coffee and Quack. Remember to get out the Native vote on Tuesday, November 3rd. Now let's just jump right into the forum discussion. Hello, everybody. Hi, welcome. Parlerifsi. Good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us today for a House District 40 Candidate Forum, broadcasted by KBRW 680 AM/FM and sponsored by the Arctic Sounder and Coffee and Quack. I'm Alice Kaniklen, Uvunga Kanik, with Coffee and Quack. Coffee and Quack is a podcast to celebrate and explore contemporary Native life in urban Alaska. And the views and opinions expressed in this forum are those of the candidates and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of Coffee and Quack. Joining us today are Josiah Peterson of Utqiagvik, who is running as an independent candidate, and Elizabeth Ferguson, a Democrat of Kotzebue. Both are candidates for the House District 40 seat being vacated by Representative John Lincoln of Kotzebue. Thank you both for joining us. I would like to ask both of you to please take 2 minutes to introduce yourselves to our listeners. We can start with Josiah. Okay, maybe we can start with Elizabeth. Elizabeth, can you please introduce yourself?
Uvlulotak, Kuyanak, for this opportunity to be here and to speak to the listeners of KBRW. No matter where you are, I know you can stream this online, so I'm very excited to be here. Ovenga Nelksik, Achich Rorunga Flores Harrisman, Nalagmi Chisiga, Elizabeth Ferguson, Kikik Tagrug Miungurunga, Amayukaka Inyukuyuk Tabot Laglu, Savoti Sukivsi State Representative Milunga, House District 40 me. My name's Elizabeth Nilksik Ferguson. I was named after my amo, Florence Harris of Kotzebue. I grew up here in Kotzebue, but I also spent a lot of my time with my family at our camps at Sisolik and Nelson's Camp surrounding the Kotzebue area. My parents are Archie and Lena Ferguson. They're both from Kotzebue. I'm a student at the University of Alaska Southeast. I'm pursuing a degree in political science, and I currently work at the Northwest Arctic Borough School District. Before that, I worked in the legislature in Representative John Lincoln's office. I split my time between Kotzebue and Juneau. I gained valuable experience, including carrying legislation, legislative research, and testifying in committees. I also had the amazing opportunity of meeting many of you whenever you traveled down to Juneau, and that was always a highlight of my time in the representative's office. I served on the Native Village of Kotzebue's Tribal Council. I followed my parents' footsteps and became a volunteer firefighter, and I currently serve on the ICC Alaska Board of Directors. I'm really excited to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Josiah, would you please take some time to introduce yourself as well?
Parlerifsi, everybody listening. Uvanga Aulachrak. Only Katkanik, Crawford and Laura Potkudak, Asi Apalu, Akalu Simeon and Susan Potkudak, and Molly and Jim Peterson. I was born and raised here in Barrow. My wife's born in, well, I don't know if she was born here, but she's raised here in Barrow. Our kids are raised here in Barrow, and we're making sure that they understand their Inupiaq identity before they go out into the world. I wanted to run for House District 40 because I feel like we need some strong cultural representation down in Juneau when there's legislation pertaining to a number of issues that affect us. But more importantly, keeping that history of our Iñupiaq values in mind when we make decisions going forward for our people. So as far as my background and experience, I've been being elected by my peers since I was 16 at AFN when I was selected to be the youth representative for our Arctic region. Since then, I've been elected to the Regional Tribal Council, understanding the tribe's role in our society. After that, I was elected to the UIC Board of Directors, which is the private sector of our society. Then furthermore, when we have discussions about things like PCE, I've been on our utility board for the last few years now, learning about the challenges that rural power generation and heating of homes, the issues that are faced there. And then most recently, I was elected to the North Slope Borough Assembly, where we learn about and decide on policy that affects our whole borough. And most importantly, how to strike a proper balance between our cultural and subsistence lifestyle while at the same time keeping an eye on our economic basis so that we can afford to have boats and snow machines and heat our homes efficiently and things like that. So that's the kind of experience that I'm planning on taking down to Juneau to represent our whole district, if so chosen by the people. So.
Okay, great. Thank you both, Koinakak, for being here today. I appreciate it. I have a couple of questions, and I'd like to follow a format to facilitate this discussion. And so the format that I would like for us to follow today is that I will ask each of you a question, and we will rotate who will answer it first. So Elizabeth will answer the first question, and Josiah will follow. And for the second question, Josiah will answer the first, and then Elizabeth will follow. Once each candidate has provided their response, I may give the other candidate 30 seconds to respond. For the sake of time, I ask that you keep your answers to around 2 minutes, and I've got my little timer here, so so let's try to keep it to 2 minutes. And if you guys are ready, I'd like to start with the first question. Are we good to go? Okay. So the first question is, if elected, you will join the House of Representatives as a freshman legislator. Without seniority, how do you plan to leverage your influence for the best interests of the district?
Koyanak, for that question, that's really important to keep in mind as we move forward and plan what kind of representative we want to be for our district. Something that is really important is building meaningful relationships, not only with the constituents and the voters back in the district, but with, my colleagues down in Juneau, whether it's other legislators in either house or staff as well. And that's really important. And in my time in Juneau, I've been able to build relationships with legislators and staff. And, I think that's really important is putting politics aside, partisan politics aside, and understanding that the district is more important, making sure that the priorities of the district stay at the forefront, and putting personalities aside, putting egos aside, putting personal feelings aside, and making sure that we're positioning the district and the priorities in a way that best protects the district and pushes our goals forward. I think building relationships and building on relationships across the aisle is really important. One of my favorite Iñupiaq values is cooperation and hard work. And those are some of the values that, I'll strive to continue using in my daily life, but also down in Juneau. Our district has historically been really powerful down in Juneau. We've had very, very strong leaders come out of our district. And because of that, we've been able to position ourselves to, get education funding, get infrastructure funding. And my intention is to continue the work of our leaders that came before us and continue forging those paths and partnerships. I think, okay. Thank you.
I think, being elected to previous positions where we represent our people and traveling the world really to tell our story, and you create that relationship. You got to be impressionable with anyone that you're working with, and whether it was with the North Slope Borough's capacity going down and working with the various big banks for our bonding or anything like that. That's what I've found as the common denominator between representing our region is, number one, being impressionable, being able to communicate thoroughly. And number two, which I think is real important, is being able to tell our story of who we are as a people. And I think the best way to do that is through your life experiences. And that's why I've made it a point raising my kids like how I was raised, to make sure they know their identity and where they come from. So as far as being down in Juneau, I'm not worried about it. It's going to be that relationship building between legislators and other staffers, and really working with the boroughs that I'm representing. They're lobbyists down there, and tying into that networking that they've already created. So that's what I'm planning on doing down there. Working with the North Slope Borough and the Northwest Arctic Borough's government affairs team, and that's really where you get to the meat and potatoes of what different things affect the different boroughs, and then going into it, the different native corporations, the tribes, and all of that. So that's what I'm planning on doing. Just be impressionable, be a true, raw representation of who we are as a people. And at the same time, making sure that we don't get left behind by the rest of the world.
Okay, thank you, Josiah. So the next question is, historically, rural legislators have often caucused with the party that happens to comprise the majority. What are your plans for this? And we'll start with Josiah this time.
That's exactly part of the reason I chose to run as an independent, because that's what it is, right? We're going there, and I think of what Oliver Levitt said. You got to set out to beat them at their own game, and part of that is being able to not be divided right off the get, right? Solely representing a party. And I mean, if you look at what John Lincoln did, started off as a Democrat and then ran as an independent. There's a reason for that. So that's kind of what the big game plan is, right? It's a strategy, and if you're not playing a strategy, then you'll get lost in the weeds and in the rabbit holes. So that's my plan going forward, is being able to caucus with the majority for the right things for our district.
Thank you, Josiah. Elizabeth?
Yeah, thanks. You were totally correct. Historically, rural legislators have caucused with whichever party has come out as the majority, and that's because, like them, I also feel that our district, our priorities, our people, and our communities are far too important to, stick to partisan politics. We've seen historically in both the Senate and the House bipartisan, tripartisan coalitions. This isn't, I am a registered Democrat and I am running as a Democrat, but that alone is not going to define how I represent the district. I'm going to work my best across party lines to make sure our district is as best positioned as possible. And that starts with making sure that, that I am a part of this majority, regardless of party makeup, because our district and our priorities are that important. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. Our next question is, the state faces anywhere from a $1 billion to $2 billion deficit,